Welcome back to a Spiritual World podcast. Season 3, episode 3 at your doorstep. And we are not just talking about spirituality, we're learning how to embody it. The last episode, we talked about the space between the moments where you feel deeply connected and the moments where you feel so overwhelmed, reactive, and stuck in your own mind. The moments where you feel like yourself and the moments where you feel like you've lost yourself. And today, I want to take that a step further because I started noticing something. And honestly, it's a little uncomfortable to look at, but it's nice to see the grace of healing abound. And that truth is we pick and choose what we believe based on what feels safe, and then we call it truth. And trust me, I'm not saying this in judgment to anyone because I've been there, I've done that, but part of this episode comes about because of such conflict between belief systems, right? And it doesn't matter if it's dogmatic, religious, spiritual, shamanic, Wiccan. I don't care. I do not care. The confliction between them is, again, another level of disconnect, right? So I am writing this episode because I want to bring a deeper awareness, right? We want to reconnect, dissect, reconnect. Because the truth is, everything that I share here on this platform, I have personally walked the path. So at some point, we have to ask ourselves, you have to ask yourself, I have to ask myself, are we actually choosing what is true? Right? Or what is true for the betterment of humanity? Or are we choosing what we've been conditioned to accept? Or we can take it one step deeper and we can ask, like, is what we're believing in a biased perspective that supports conditioning that's already involved or programming that's already supporting us, right? Like, is this truth keeping us caged, or is this truth allowing us to break free? And if we look at psychology, which we love to do, it's the study of the mind, right? We've discussed that. And for a long time, we have treated the mind like it's something tangible, right? Growing up, definitely didn't think the mind and the brain were two separate things. I thought that, we could point at it, that it lived in the brain, that it was the brain, that it was something that was measurable, something that was safe. Because society loves tangibility. Society loves proof, evidence, right? And we like things that we can hold in our hands and say, there it is, that's real, undeniably real. And I get that because certainty is equivocated with safety. We have been programmed to think that certainty means safety when nothing is ever certain, everything is always changing. But when it comes to tangibility, it provides a little an additional layer of certainty, right? Like we've stacked these things on themselves to give them a prevalent meaning, and that meaning is safety. Tangibility feels safe, therefore control feels safe. And the more we grow, the more we start realizing that the mind may not be as limited to the brain as we once thought. Actually, we already know this, but we're waiting for science to catch up. Or at least for I think science has caught up to so much stuff that we're aware of, but the publications are not made public because then they would lose control. However, before long, that will be inevitable. So, and that of course opens us up to a much bigger conversation. And then the bigger conversation in this episode, of course. So let's stay on track, Toria. Because here's truly what's interesting. We'll say that something isn't real, right? And I've done this, then I've had it done to me. I've had individuals, or I have not believed other individuals because they can't prove it, or because it hasn't happened to me, and or because we don't believe the person having that experience should be someone that is allowed to have that experience. And at the same time, we also believe in things that we can't fully prove, depending on how we were taught to see the world. Take for the big example, God, energy, intuition, spirit, faith, knowing, love. All of these things are not tangible. However, we can apply tangibility to them, right? But do we absolutely have a God? Let me put it this way. The religious component or religious ideology of God walking around on earth as tangible evidence? No, we don't, right? So it's not that we're incapable of believing in the intangible. It's that we are extremely selective about when we allow ourselves to do so. And I think there's something really important to look at here when it comes to these conflicting ideas. And the possibility is that, drumroll, they're all true. God and energy, intuition and spirit, faith, knowing, love, all of it is true. Because to believe in energy and dismiss God or a higher power or source, whatever you want to call it, because God for me has changed tremendously. Every year there is a new understanding, a new belief, a new unfolding, right? Like I was raised Catholic, then I went to war with God, and then, long story short, God to me now means good orderly direction. That's what it means. So, but I also think it's an easy reference to a higher power, source, divine, the all, right? I use all of those interchangeably. But to believe in God and dismiss energy can create just as much disconnect as the gap between the mind and the soul. So it makes me question how many things are divided just based on that premise alone. So what about the gap between humans and nature? There's this lack of understanding, right? And nature is Mother Earth. So I know that God, the ideology of God, is as a father figure. So then Mother Earth, right? We're just going to take those two dualities and really kind of use them in this paradigm, because it makes sense, right? Balance, the yang, the yin, the yang, all of that stuff. But when it comes to humans and nature, there is this lack of understanding that we are nature just as much as nature is nature, right? For heaven's sakes, we are stardust. We are the stars just as much as the stars are stars. But we don't embody any of that. Instead, as a human race, we embody entitlement, supremacy, control, separation, consumerism, greed. And it's not to say that humans aren't divinely or organically good people, because I believe innately that we are made of unconditional love. And I honestly think that there are a million times more amazing, peaceful, good humans out there than there are bad. And it's not to say that when it comes to humanity that we can't embody power or leadership or even a hierarchy kind of thing in a high frequency light. But at this point in time, it's obvious that we are lacking the full embodiment, the richness of wholeness, when we don't embody it at all, right? I don't believe that there are, I hate to say finite statements like none, or I believe that the majority of leaders are self-serving. And I believe that leaders should be community servants. Not to be walked all over, not to be taken advantage of, things like that, but they are supposed to be in service to the community. And that was lost long ago. The communities are shut down, their voices are drowned out. There are plenty of experiences all around us on both ends of the spectrum that I have witnessed firsthand. And I'm sure that you have too. So this is what I mean. Like, we're just not in our wholeness. And to get there, each one of us individually has to work on our wholeness, right? We have to work on our own spiritual world. So who really cares if someone finds spirituality through God and someone else finds it through energy, or someone else finds it through one of the 100 other religions, and someone else finds it through nature or caterpillars or astral projection, right? Who cares? If you can see gaps in their belief or their behavior, the only reason you can see gaps in theirs are because you can see gaps in your own. Remember, everything is a mirror. And it's the same as us all on the journey of shadow work, right? Because a lot of the judgment that I see is like against religions and stuff like that. Like, oh, well, they don't have this belief, or they don't have that belief, or they don't have the whole story, or they're, it's all patriarchy and da 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 da. There are so many people that follow an ideal, like the God ideology in Christianity, that are good, believing people. And I used to not think this at all. Like, I'm not even joking you. Like, for the better half of my life, I really thought that most of them were over judgmental, and I used to just always say that they were the most judgy people and they only followed what they wanted to follow, and they put all these expectations on society that they wouldn't live up to themselves. And it's not to say that I was wrong in those aspects, because I met people and created circumstances that, reiterated those beliefs. But when I expanded my beliefs to understanding that consciousness is literally everything, and that every religion and every teaching and every ancientness is a characteristic of source presenting itself to you for exploration, it really, really like fine-tuned. And it's not to say, and there's people that practice spirituality that are just off the wall turds. You know what I mean? And that's their journey. And it's not to say it's right or it's wrong. It's the layers that they're working through, and this lifetime, the next lifetime, whatever, this loop, that loop, this spiral, that spiral, eventually they're going to get there. And so I guess to say, like, this is my nice little tangent of trying to put some good out in the world and trying to get rid of the disparage of confliction, right? Because this whole season is about coming back to wholeness and eliminating the things that keep these dualities separate, disconnect, right? And like I said, just as the journey of shadow work, that's what I was kind of comparing to like a religion ideology. Everybody goes through the same, right? Like, and it's just a matter of how much you apply yourself. I think that that's one of the other things too, is like spirituality and consciousness. It's almost unavoidable that you have to apply yourself, because once you start, you can't go back, right? Like, or it's very, very rare that you're going to go back, because otherwise you're going to be in extreme discomfort and extreme pain and loops and insanity and all this other stuff, right? I don't think that there has been, for me, something that makes me commit as much to change. But I knew that there are people that do Bible studies and that grow and, look for the mysticism in things. So anyways, I'm kind of getting a little bit off of everything I've written, and I don't want to go too far, because when I go too far, sometimes I start to judge myself hardcore, and then I'll just erase the entire episode that I've recorded, and then I will start all over. And I don't want to do that, because I've already done that once in this episode. So I feel like this episode is a little bit vulnerable for me, because it comes from a place of pain even within me. And I think that maybe I'm not alone, that maybe we all have felt this at some point in time, because the reality of it is I had mentioned in the last episode that, a lot of us have awakened in isolation. And so that has been hard for some of us. A lot of us, all of us maybe. So bringing it back to what I have in front of me, everything is a mirror. And if shadow work and, reading the Bible are the same thing, what that tells me is that when I reflect it back to myself, is that I'm spotting it because I've still got it, right? Like, I'm still judging somebody else's belief system out of fear of being judged of my own, maybe. Or maybe I'm even judging myself because my belief system has changed so much and continues to change with every year. I remember there was one year, maybe two, that I really just like completely harnessed the ability to be a hypocrite. Like, I was like, heck yeah, I think a hypocrite is the coolest thing in the world because that means I am constantly evolving and constantly changing what I once believed. And that's okay. Like, I learned that that's okay. Like, I'm allowed to change my beliefs and I'm allowed to say that I've changed and I changed my mind, even. Right? Like, I'm looking at it from somebody else's perspective now. Instead, before I was so closed minded. And if somebody else changed their minds, then heaven forbid. Right? So, that judgment, that irritation that I sometimes still feel, that need to point it out usually tells me that there's something there for me too, right? So like me processing triggers, right? Like making sure that as I move forward, and this podcast is a huge part of it. Like with every season, it's more of me stepping into my own wholeness. It's more of me revolutionizing my own life. It's more of me allowing myself to be seen in my authenticity. Because I do have people that are close to me that have judged me based on my growing beliefs. And that has been hard. And I have therefore judged them on their beliefs. And it is not something that, I want to say it is not something that I'm willing to tolerate within myself. And that feels really, really good to say. But then there's this other paradox of me that it's like I kind of, maybe not tolerating it in myself is the answer to change. Because it doesn't matter if someone judges me. I don't want to judge them. That's what it comes down to. I don't want to criticize or technically hurt someone. I mean, even if I never say it to them, it's in my mind and it's still like envisioning or kind of imagining them pain. Because I'm in pain because of how people judge my belief system at this point. So it comes back to, the very foundational, because I'm hurting, I want to hurt someone else concept. So, yeah. Which, if I allow all of this, right? This tangent and this episode and everything else, this judgment can turn into an enlightenment. Just like it just did, right? Because I felt like saying that I wasn't going to tolerate it was really restrictive and kind of like shaming myself. But there are also boundaries that I have to set within myself, right? With all the different parts of myself and with my mind and my psyche and my soul and everything that I'm willing to accept within myself, not just outside of myself. Like boundaries are for the self just as much as they're for anybody else. Actually, they're more for the self because that's how trauma bonds are created, is when you abandon or betray the self in any way, shape, or form. And you can absolutely create a trauma bond with yourself. And I always love to say that because I don't think it's talked about enough. Like, trauma bonds are not just created with another individual. They can be created within the self as well. And I'm sure I had that in a previous episode. And if not, somebody remind me and I'll make one. But yeah, if I let this trigger and the judgment move past those stages, move past the judgment, then it can turn into enlightenment. Because over time, that selectiveness becomes programming, right? Like what we choose to believe is true, tangible or not. It becomes our programming and it becomes how our neural pathways will fire for however long until we get another dose of awareness. Because we trust what feels familiar and we trust what feels acceptable and we trust what we were taught not to question. And without realizing it, we can spend years choosing beliefs that are actually limiting us, not protecting us, limiting us. Not because we're broken, not because we're failing, but because we inherited systems we never stopped to examine. I think this is a good time to say, and it's almost got like tears in my eyes. There was a time like I never thought that I was going to be first off, where I am now. That's a given. Normal, right? Like I never wanted to be normal. I was an addict, an alcoholic. I was a thief. I was abusive, abrasive, all of these things, right? In my survival modes. I was all of these things. And definitely did not have my life together whatsoever. Like, no, not at all. I lived only for the day, lived only for the moment, not in a way that was present, in a way that was just living to die. And so when I got clean and I found recovery and I like got better in every way, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like all of these things, right? I started being able to have a relationship with my family again. And it felt really, really good. And I started feeling like I could finally be who they wanted me to be. And that's the problem, right? Like I felt like I could finally be who they wanted me to be and who I thought I was supposed to be, which was all intents purposes more like them or who they wanted me to be or whatever examples had been set when raising me and things like that. And all of this stuff was going on at the same time. Like my belief systems were being dissected, my mental capacity, the psychosis, spiritual, everything, all of these crazy experiences, which I now know I could equivocate to like Carl Jung's experiences, or the Sleeping Prophets experiences. There's just a whole blend. And I worked with a lot of different energies in those psychoses, like Jung's and quite a few others. Anyways, and I had to go through this really very real grieving period. And it's actually lasted quite a few years. Like, I guess me coming out in this podcast and like investing in it and actually showing up for a third season is a reiteration of me moving through that grieving process. I can't believe I'm putting this on a podcast. But and that's why it's long-winded, is because it's like, shit, do I really want to say this? But now I also feel like an outcast again, right? I was an outcast before because of all those things. And then I found recovery and thought that I was going to be this other person for them or whatever it was. And then I'm not. And it's created controversy again. And part of me absolutely hates it. Because I feel so disconnected from some people that I love so, so much. And it hinders our relationship. And it makes me want to be in certain survival modes because I want to keep myself safe. And so I'm still learning to navigate that, right? And accept that I will never be what my family thinks that I should be. I will never be what other people expect me to be. I will be me in my own unique and divine, cosmic, spiritual, sovereign way. And I'm still figuring that out myself. But it's the farthest thing from normal that I feel like I could ever be. But I guess I said that I never wanted to be normal, so this is what I get. And I think that this will be the normal one day when we're all whole again and we understand each other as one. And so yeah, that's why this topic really like hinders on me. And I don't like when I really present podcasts that like are things that I'm painfully still going through. A lot of the stuff I like to talk about are things that I have already been through and that I feel like I have a very like clear head about, and it's really cut and dry, right? Like not beat around the bush. It's the truth. It's what I experienced. This is it. this one, I'm still grieving that. And that grief is ultimately like, why should I ever have to grieve that I'm learning to be me? Right? Like that I love myself so much that I want to know me in this authentic way and not be put in a box or in some way that other people that love me and that I love think that I should be because it feels safer to them. And part of it, I'm sure, is because I was so unsafe for my family for so long. That it's like, I am the safest I could ever be for my family. I am immensely safe for my family. However, there are people that still see me as unsafe. And that is heartbreaking. Well, this healing therapy session was wonderful. I really appreciate you guys all for being my therapists today. No, I'm just kidding. If you can't laugh about it, then I don't know, I believe that laughter not only is very healing, but my understanding is if you can laugh through the toughest of situations, it opens a cosmic door that leads you to like a whole different level of enlightenment. So we can laugh about it. And if it resonates with you, then a big heart hug to you, because that was a huge epiphany, right? To grieve the fact that we get to be our authentic selves and not some programmed paradigm any longer. So this podcast like totally took a turn out in like left field and right field and center field and all the fields. But we're still getting home. We're hitting a home run. And I am so sorry. I just had a piece of incense fall that was slightly on fire. So I needed to tend to that. If you heard a bunch of rustling. I'm guessing that was a sign, right? My energy was maybe a little much. Whew. All right, Spirit. Tell us how you really feel. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to try to pick this up so we can end this because I am close to the end of what I have written. Anyways, so when it comes to this projection and mirroring of different belief systems, I think that there comes a point where what used to feel safe starts to feel restrictive, right? Like that's how we know it's no longer working for us, where logic alone stops answering us and starts being the answer of what we're feeling, right? Like the logic alone no longer satisfies the emotions that we're having. Where you can no longer think your way out of your own suffering, right? For me, thinking my way out of my own suffering was drugs and alcohol and whatever other vice would allow me to escape. And eventually that ran me into the ground multiple times. And peace, right? Like you can't analyze your way into peace. You can't mentally solve what your soul is asking you to feel, right? That's the disconnect. The disconnect is that it's just one part of you's job to do all of these things. And that's just not how it is set up to be. I do not want to say it's impossible because as soon as you say something is impossible, it opens the door to the infinite. But we are programmed, like we're already living in disconnect, right? Like people have been successful probably doing it just through mentality, right? But we're not there anymore. Like we're here and we've evolved and we're here to bring all these parts back into wholeness. And if we go back to the loops that we discussed in the previous episode, those moments where our minds are trying to fix everything, figure everything out, protect us from every possible outcome, what if part of that Is your mind trying to operate inside a belief system that just no longer fits, right? The emotions don't fit, the belief system no longer fits, and that can be based off of the emotions, connecting, trying to solve something with tools that no longer serve you or only go so far. And instead of something being wrong with you, maybe something in you is ready to expand. So, the shift isn't about rejecting everything you've ever believed. It's not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is awareness. It is asking yourself, does this still serve me? Or do I actually believe this? Or what about, did I inherit it? Am I choosing truth or am I choosing comfort? I have family members that still frequent church, and I go with them every opportunity that I get. Because in every sermon, no matter what denomination I go to, I find at least one sentence, at least one, that speaks on an infinite level of spirituality. There is always a message if you're willing to hear it. There's always a bridge if you're willing to see it. And there's always growth in every room that you walk in. And so sometimes what feels safest is the very thing keeping us disconnected. Because when you start opening yourself to something beyond just what you can prove, you gain access to a different kind of relationship with yourself. That intuition, awareness, stillness and discernment, that trust. And if you don't, you stay where you are. And that's not wrong. There's no judgment there. That's some people's entire soul blueprint, right? But it's probably not yours if you're listening to this podcast. And eventually, it might stop feeling like enough because your soul usually knows before your mind is ready to admit it. Because our mind, and I don't even know if it's our mind, but like I like to say that our mind, the programming, right? It's not that the mind chooses the programming, it's just the programming has been on such long, tedious loops for us that we get caught in them and we don't even realize it. And so our soul knows that we're ready to move on long before we can actually admit it to ourselves. And so that's for everything. That's for anything with limiting beliefs or thinking that someone else's belief system is limiting them or anything like that. Because even after all of my epiphany, what I can feel loud and clear is this part of me that is so tired of the division between religion and spirituality and belief systems and ancient teachings and everything else. And I just pray, and send the biggest blessings for the days that all of that division is absorbed by the great source, and we and all of what we believe are seen as one in non-duality. So, in closing, if you really think about it, you are not just your body, you are not just your thoughts, you are not just your reactions. You are the one experiencing all of it. And that experience is happening inside something much deeper, something that may not always be tangible. It is always present, though. So maybe at the end of the day, this isn't about proving anything. Maybe it's about noticing where you've limited yourself to only what can be proven and gently allowing yourself to explore beyond that. Not blindly, not forcefully, just honestly. Because you're not just living in the world. You are a spiritual world. And the way you see, believe, judge, heal, and experience shapes everything inside of it. So, if you're feeling called to go deeper into your own world, to really understand what's coming up for you personally, I now offer one-on-one sessions with course and coaching opportunities also in the works. You can find my current offerings at aspiritualworld.com and all of my free offerings like meditations and such on the A Spiritual World YouTube channel. Everything is there whenever you are ready. And until next time, and I really hope that this personal podcast episode was as fulfilling for you as it was for me. Namaste, and many blessings on your way. And it is with a well of deep gratitude that I send from my heart to yours for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.